All right, Rush Hour Podcast. We're back with another action-packed week. I mean, there's a lot happening in the tech world here. We'll get you all updated, but we'll start off with the H1B situation. I know last time we talked about it. There are now updates. We've got TikTok. There's a new TikTok deal. We'll get the latest on that. And then lastly, Meta's new. Actually, they launched glasses and they launched a new AI app. We'll talk about that. So let's kick it off. Let's start with the H1Bs. What's the latest on that, Just?
Yeah, like you said, kind of a crazy week. So, with H1Bs, and again, we're in Silicon Valley, so this has a particularly large impact on the ecosystem here. But the Trump administration basically imposed a new fee on H1B petitions. I think it started on September 21st, where every new petition will now, the fee has now gone up to 100K. And just to give a frame of reference for people who aren't as aware about H1Bs, which basically allow people to work in the US from other countries, those petitions used to be 2 to 5K. So it's basically like a 20x increase from where they were, which is pretty insane. So who does this hit the most? Well, tech companies have been particularly hit with these. Will be particularly impacted by these fees. Think of the Amazons and Microsofts, Metas, and the shockwaves. I mean, it can't be understated. And some of you probably actually saw some of the videos of people who were on the plane about to head back home to India and China, other places, and literally jumped off the plane, not off of the plane, but disboarded the plane so that,
Yeah.
yeah, because over concern of this new law. And what economists are saying now with the basically the fallout from this is it could spark a huge brain drain from the US to other countries. Think about, it's such a huge fee. People going to Canada, people going to Europe, other places, which could slow US innovation and growth. A lot of folks who are coming here are tremendous skill within realms of computer science, AI, et cetera, that are just super talented, happen to be from outside the US. And basically are creating a much higher barrier to bring those folks in. But I think it's important to be stated, employers must already prove that H-1B hires don't hurt US workers. So like these are people who are typically coming in who are very skilled. And a lot of critics are saying, hey, this is just Trump, further weaponizing immigration policies. But for Silicon Valley, for folks out here in the tech space and people interested in this ecosystem, this presents a huge risk to overall Silicon Valley ecosystem and could land AI tech leadership to rivals outside of the US, again, like Canada, Europe, and China. So TW, I'm sure you heard this news as well. I know you did because we talked about it. What do you think about the implications and
I mean,
the approach here?
the numbers that they're throwing, it doesn't, I don't think it's going to hurt AI because the numbers they're throwing out for AI help obviously are so big that 100K is not going to do anything. It's more, I'm more concerned about other companies that just have a lot of needs that are tough to meet here, and they have an extra 100K cost. Where does that come from? Pull from the product? Does it pull from the salary of the employee they're trying to bring to help justify? I don't know, but that's a bigger question now. You're about to hire someone, and there's an extra whatever 80K that you throw on top for medium small sized business. That's a lot, especially if you have multiple H1Bs. So it's a tough one. I'm curious how it's going to land out. I think the cutting edge and the bleeding edge of these companies are going to struggle. Like startups, it's going to be even harder to be a startup if you need a specialized help in H1Bs, right? So I feel for everyone that's going through it. That's got to be really unnerving to know. Oh my gosh, when I need a new H1B next year, what am I going to do? Now there's an extra cost. How does it work? Yeah, it's a lot. I'm not sure how I feel about it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. But to play the devil's advocate point, right? Of hey, when Trump came in his administration, he said we're going to right the ship. It's America first. We're going to make sure these jobs are going to folks from this country. People
Right.
have taken. Some people would say that there have been loopholes within the system, et cetera. And now it's just like, hey, I'm just leveling the playing field for people, students coming out of U.S. colleges, et cetera, who weren't able to get certain jobs. I think this is the first time coming out of college right now that it's actually harder to get a job at a college than it is, um, just switching jobs, which was that typically wasn't the case. And just to say, I don't necessarily agree with that, but what do you think about that case that's been made in terms of?
I
the
mean, it
impact.
seems like such a narrow case. That's my thing. Like just broadly, it's hard to tell, right? Because you don't know what this is in action. I'm not in the weeds. The people that I know on H1Bs are nervous. So I'd love to hear in the comments. What are if you're on an H1B, what are your thoughts? How does it feel? It can't feel great if knowing there's more costs tied to you being here. Um, but yeah, maybe it's like a tariff on people. Like, yeah, you want to come here and work? We got great opportunities. Now the companies you got to pay more, and maybe it helps. I don't know. That's a really
Yeah,
tough one, right? Because some of these jobs are really hard to fill, right? There's some needs that are outside that we need help, and now they cost a lot more. If you
yeah.
just have to have them, it's just a bigger cost now.
I
Maybe
hadn't.
it's
I,
like
yeah, I
taxes.
hadn't thought about that positioning. I thought it was really interesting, like a tariff on people. Man, that's I got to sit in and think about that for a bit. When I think about Silicon Valley and a lot of the storied CEOs who are here now, and folks like uh, you know uh, kind of the heads of Google and um, Microsoft, and just a lot of startups that have been founded here by immigrants. I mean, it's a place in an ecosystem where people come from outside the U.S. and created these incredibly valuable companies, these billion-dollar plus companies, and to stifle the innovation, to stifle people just coming here from all around the world. It seems very limiting relative to the goal here, which is kind of just push innovation, push tech forward, just kind of have the best minds. And so that it just feels it feels like kind of the magic of Silicon Valley slowly is slowly being impacted, right, by the therapies, by this just a rhetoric around immigration and and just with AI and displacement. Like there's just a lot of elements that are kind of compounding right now.
I
But
wonder.
I
I mean,
yeah
if it's a lot of stereotypes out there, but I think a lot of H1B external people coming in, the thought process is they've worked really hard, they have specialized skills, and they work really hard, and they come here to work. Whereas American counterparts probably don't have the specialization, and they won't have the loyalty and the hard work ethic of someone coming in on H1B. I don't know if that holds up, but
yeah
there is sort of that feeling like, hey, I always go H1B because I know they're going to be committed. It kind of locks them into the company and being committed to the company. Whereas
yeah
when you're hiring, internal, I don't know, internal, when you're hiring here in the U.S., finding that loyalty is hard. The H1B is something they kind of hold over the employee, and the employee is very grateful for it a little bit.
yeah I don't yeah that's where I maybe push back a little bit. I feel like I guess there's that loyalty piece, but like, it's also something dangling over your head that, hey, you have to work hard and do all this stuff. So I don't necessarily know if that is, I mean, it's kind of like a stick as opposed to necessarily a carrot, maybe in some ways. And then I also want to be careful to say, like, there are tremendous talent within the country that can fill a lot of these roles
Lots
as
of
well,
roles,
and
yeah.
and should be as well. So I feel like there should definitely be more of a balance. My mind goes to is, like, imagine that you're in college right now and you came to the US, you wanted to work here, you want to set up a career here. I mean, what does that look like? I mean, I just have a lot of empathy for folks who are from outside the states who kind of wanted to go into careers here where that path is way less certain, and even entrepreneurs who want to start companies here where I believe they get like a year after graduating from college to stay within the US, but then after that they'll they'd have to be supported by some either their own company paying on that behalf, or in terms of finding a job. So
Yeah,
it's
once
just a lot of
once
whiplash, man.
again, the young fresh graduates, just like we talk about the AI, this is another one. It's getting harder and harder if you don't have, experience and skill and coming in sort of cold into this market. It's a tough market to come into. But the more creative you can be, the more tools you have, I think the better. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be really hard.
Yeah. So if we had to leave, maybe before going on to the next topic, if you had any kind of words of advice for people navigating this time, what would you tell them?
I think it's just continuing that same methodology of like, hard work, being talented. People will pay. I think it is a matter. This is a little bump on the screen, but I think as long as you keep your head down and you show real value, you will. It will work. That's, this may be a little temporary time that you need to reset and reevaluate, but all these larger companies really do value hard work and determination and skill, so that I think the vast majority won't be too affected. I think it's more the if you're thinking the startup role, you may want to get creative with whatever that means. Like, does that mean moving out and working somewhere else and coming back in? Maybe. I think you just have to be more creative with that.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I would say I'm a little less sanguine. Like a little less positive. I don't know, man. It seems like we're in an era now where I think that there are some folks who are very highly skilled who will be fine, but a lot of other people, I think the deal is just going to be you go back to your native country or it's outside the U.S. And I think that's unfortunate, but I think that that's the scenario people are in. So you have to kind of plan. You have to kind of plan for everything. Again, it's not my ideal scenario, but I think you should kind of see these policy changes for what they are, and act within you and your family's own best interest, however you perceive that.
They're not forever. That's the best part, right? Nothing's forever. So
Yeah, well, that's the we'll have to wait and see.
I think our next
um,
topic, we got TikTok.
yeah.
What's the latest on TikTok?
So the TikTok deal. It seemed like every few months it was like, oh, we're pushing it back, but finally, Trump yesterday signed an executive order for a TikTok divestiture, where ByteDance will hold less than 20%, and U.S. investors will control 80%, including Oracle, Larry Ellison, Michael Dell, Uber Murdoch, some of the other folks who are interestingly enough, a part of Trump's kind of closer circle. But hey, sometimes that's the way these deals are structured. And it will also value the platform at 14 billion, which I want to kind of come to at the end of this introduction to the topic. But here's some other kind of key parts of the deal. So American investors will reportedly control the algorithm, which is kind of the engine behind this virality. It effectively removes the secret sauce of the app to U.S. hands. We'll see how that plays out, but that's the way that it's supposed to work. Trump, for his part, said he'd love for the algorithm to be 100% MAGA, but he said he promised every group will be treated fairly. We'll see how that plays out in terms of the content that's on there. We'll all be able to experience that. And China, for their part, they say, hey, I think that this deal respects the wishes of the company. They're nudging the U.S. based off of getting this through to provide more fair, what they perceive to be fair business practices for China. I think what's so fascinating about this is, Donald Trump was one of the main proponents of banning TikTok, and then the government started to actually enact that. Then he started to see a TikTok bump closer to the election. He's like, actually, maybe it's not too bad, and it's good for Americans. There are 170 million people on it, and it's kind of helped me. But I think the most fascinating thing about this deal is I think TikTok US does around $10 to $14 billion in revenue, in annual revenue, and the company is effectively sold for around 1x, maybe less than 1x revenue, which is an extraordinary discount for the
Yeah,
platform. And so, like, what does that say about? It feels less like a free market transaction and more like a state-driven one. I think we can all kind of see that. So, what does that mean for tech companies and the government impact, and how and for the state of these businesses moving forward, where they're kind of based outside of the U.S. Like, it's a very unique, but also maybe new challenging environment that we're all in there. We're like, if you invested in TikTok and you only get $14 billion for this as investors, did that work out? Can it work out down the line? What
right.
do you think, TW?
Yeah, it's pretty slippery. I agree. It's kind of like we're stepping in and forcing the hand of, because of the IPO or the exit, like forcing it at a lower price for the benefit of the US. It's really tough. Like, I can't imagine they're happy over there, but also, like, at least it gets to continue. The flip side is at least it gets to continue versus sort of being forced out, and going to, way less or zero in the US. So we'll see how it actually pans out. I agree with you. It seems incredibly unfair. And for those that are coming from China or other regions, they're probably thinking twice about how they enter the market here in the US. Finding a good partner in the US is super important then.
Yeah, one align with this topic, but maybe some in parallel. What this has made me think about, it's really hard to unseat incumbents that have the kind of cultural impact and also just user base
Yeah.
as a TikTok. And what we've seen with players like, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, Facebook, et cetera, it's hard to entirely displace these companies. A lot of you've seen upstarts, kind of the clubhouses, B Reels, etc., try to displace, and it's generally really difficult. And I think unseating a platform like TikTok would have been unfathomable 2-3 months ago. But now a lot of Gen Z, they're not necessarily feeling what's going on on the platform. And I think knowing that this is going to be within the control of some players that don't necessarily have kind of most favorable dynamics within that cohort, do you think this could be an opening for another consumer, like short form video platform to emerge that competes, or would that just kind of fall off as well?
No, I think it's an absolute opening because it's going to be changing algorithm, changing practices. If it's, it already feels like TikTok has kind of jumped the shark for a lot of the youth. Now it's like an older demo that's kind of taking over. And, and now we're talking about Meta next, the new form factor. Now you get glasses. Now you've got AI. It seems like there is something else brewing here very soon. And, government stepping in on taking over something that I won't say is antiquated, but is kind of like past its prime is really interesting. Like it makes sense too, right? These things move really slowly. TikTok has gotten to a point where it's pretty mature, and now the government kind of has its hands in it, and it just doesn't feel like this cool startup app that all the kids are using. Now it's something else.
Yeah, I mean, I will push back a little bit. I would say that the kids are still using it. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same amount of growth or same amount of cachet that it did in the past. But I think that anytime that a government can kind of come in and totally and create an entirely new deal structure that like basically passes over ownership
Yeah, so
to a group of investors that they choose, just that's just wild. Like you don't see that in the US typically. You see that in
did they announce who
Russia.
the
And yeah,
actual owners are?
I don't think they formally announced it yet. I think it's some of the folks who I mentioned, like Michael Dell and Rupert Murdoch and Larry Ellison, and there's also maybe Andreessen Horowitz and Silver Lake. So some kind of private equity and venture funds as well. I think the whole structure hasn't necessarily been fully figured out, but like that's another part. It's like how will this all work? It's pretty
Hey, back.
pretty crazy, man.
I texted you this back, and when we were first talking about who's going to take over TikTok and AI, you had Larry Ellison on that list as your first person. I sort of earmarked that, like, what is the stock worth when you were saying that? It's up 133% since your first mention of it. So outpacing all the others. People talk about Nvidia and all these others, but I'm talking Oracle, Larry Ellison at that time, whatever, mark the calendar when you first brought it up as a leader, that a potential leader in this space. Now they're up 133%, pretty incredible, and that's outpacing basically everybody in the market.
Yeah, we're not giving financial advice on the show. Let's just say that, but that was a prescient observation, I guess. So we'll hope I'll take it. Time to time, I might say something smart that pans out. Maybe we transition over to the meta news.
Yeah, yeah. Let's hear it.
uh, you know, TW and I have spent a lot of time in consumer social, so we're always kind of be leaned into changes and new products that are launched. And so, Meta recently launched Vibes, and basically what Vibes is it's a short form feed of AI generated videos that are within the Meta AI app. So if you haven't checked it out, you're in space. It's worth checking out. I don't think the content is that great. Basically, people can create, generate clips and remix existing ones and share it across Instagram and Facebook and stories and reels. And right now they're partnering with Midjourney and Black Forest Labs while it's also building out their own in-house tools. And if you looked at any of the commentary around the launch of this, it's actually super funny. Some people said, bro, like nobody wanted this, or, stop posting AI slop. Like what is going on here? You promised us super intelligence. Now we're getting this. But my vantage point is actually a bit different. And what I mean by that is if you go on Instagram and you go on some of these other platforms, TikTok, et cetera, you'll begin to see AI generated content. And is a lot of it bad? Absolutely. A lot of it is just complete slop and it's not interesting. But some of it is interesting. And if you're really tied into the consumer space, you've probably seen the POV Bigfoot vlog videos and people creating realistic images of like Rugrats characters and characters from our youth that are kind of funny, and then just videos on how to use these tools, et cetera. So Right now, I think that, yeah, a lot of the content on there is not great, but it's a training ground for creative folks to find concepts that will work. And when those do work, Meta's just going to cross promote that to Instagram and Facebook and all its other platforms. And what they also have the opportunity to do is take all the learnings from that and create an entirely new entertainment platform altogether. So imagine they're not just competing with TikTok, but with short form video content where creators can use their specific tools. For any of you familiar with what's going on in kind of the mini drama series type of trend that's going on in Asia, where basically have these short form, 1 minute long pieces of video content that are blowing up. I think some of the apps have over 150 million MAU, really blowing up in Asia. For anybody who's in the consumer space, Asia is typically a canary in the coal mine for what's coming into the US next. If Meta implemented a similar type of system through their AI app and learnings, then they'd become not only a TikTok competitor, but just a entertainment Netflix competitor where maybe they're charging for some of these mini series that creators make on there, and it totally expands the aperture of what they can become. So right now it looks like AI slop. But what it could be, longer term vision and strategy around how are they just getting all this training data around creating better content. And it's just a mechanism to do that. So that was my more nuanced opinion on just the AI slot piece. But what do you think, Tito, about this
Yeah,
new
I mean,
product?
it is an interesting sandbox, right? Like you're gonna people talked about Asia having AI influencers and much more advanced, and this seems like a great realm. Like keep it all in one little sandbox, and then you can figure out AI storytelling, characters. Does it develop? Do people like it? Do people create something really interesting in here that catches on? And it seems like a great place to do it. Versus, like you said, having it in the real world first doesn't feel right because then you're watching and you're like, oh, this is fake. Whereas you're going into an AI world looking for AI content, maybe it has a better fit. We'll see. I think it's really interesting to play around in that space.
If we think about, we've talked about this a few times. We think about how far video, like AI video, has come over the last 3 years. The Will Smith eating spaghetti insanity, like weird video, but at the time it was like, oh, this is kind of interesting that this could even be created. To now, people are creating, short form films that are being entered into Tribeca Film Festival and things like that.
Yeah, it's
5 years from now, this stuff may be totally undiscernible from content that's out there. And I think the other context is, we are living through this period where we know a world, pre these tools existing. But for the youngest generation, and for my kids, and for like the next generation after that, it's just going to be what people use to create content, And so they're not going to know the difference. So yeah, so like people actually care, or if there is some premium to human related content, what does that look like? I think that's really interesting topic of exploration as well.
yeah, it is. I mean, I was thinking about that too. Like, doesn't now today you can reach and touch out to, and communicate with your whatever movie stars and celebrities. But if you couldn't, that like we did when we were kids, they may as well have been AI. It may as well have been, in the 80s and 90s. Tom Cruise he might be a robot for all I know, but having that person as an AI and what he's done, I don't know, it'd be any different. If you're growing up in the future with all these AI influencers and actors and actresses and stars, I'm not sure if it's a bad thing, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will just change. I think there will still be a premium on humans and human content and human actors, et cetera. But I think it depends on the medium. If you're just watching like a short mini series on like a entertaining topic that you're just trying to kind of chill and kick back, will that necessarily matter? No. But if it's like a documentary on someone's life, then maybe you weigh one actor there. So the lines are really blurring. Everything's happening super fast, and we're gonna keep you all updated on it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's like cartoons, and cartoons has always veered away from looking too realistic, and now maybe we're going into a world where cartoon stories are now going to be AI people that look real and are discernible from real people, and maybe we adjust as people to that kind of entertainment, which we'll see.
I think either that's going to happen or it's going to be just a huge pushback. And so we'll see where things up. I mean, I feel like ultimately the experiential stuff like live events and concerts and spending time with friends, I think people will start to dive more into that. hey, how am I just not being sucked into these immersive worlds all the time? How am I actually living in the real world? But when they are living in the immersive worlds, I think it's going to probably look more like what we're seeing now. And
And
so
then
we'll see
Meta
how we're able to
also
balance that.
launched the latest, Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses that's more AR generated. It's got a screen built in. I think it comes out in a couple of weeks. Maybe we'll grab one of those and give you guys a review. But what are your thoughts on Zuck basically doubling down on this is the form factor of the future? It is glasses. It's the least intrusive. It's always on. Um, in terms of capturing content and displaying content. The mechanism seems to make a lot of sense. He has there's like a wristband. I don't know if you've seen the demo, but there's a wristband that kind of reads your fingers and you can type in it. I think it's interesting. I know OpenAI is also working on um, some sort of secret tool for this. I wonder if it's similar because they've made a lot of advancements from this thing, which does very little and is pretty bulky and heavy, to now being thinner with way more. That's fascinating. I'm
Yeah,
curious to see how it does.
I feel like the glasses are probably the right form factor, and it's less like kind of less onerous to put on than the kind of Oculus and everything else that was those other form factors. So I think with any of these new technologies, there needs to be like some incredible app or like some application that everybody says, well, I need to be able to do this. In order for me to do this, I need to get those glasses. So
Yep.
I need the glasses, right? So like I think there has to be more of a pull there than this is just cool, even if it looks a little better. So I'd be kind of waiting for that in terms of the experience. And I think that still the form factor that works best is the smartphone. It's just like having this powerful supercomputer in your hand. But there's probably an app, there's probably a use case there that's going to be so compelling that it's going to pull folks in. What's going to happen at some point? I think we're just waiting for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Apple Vision into a regular pair of glasses. When that happens, maybe that's when everyone jumps over and decides, oh wow, now I can not only develop on this, this can be a productivity tool and a daily, um, I don't know, augmented reality world that we're living. Yeah, the possibilities are definitely more open when if you're going to wear some glasses that can convert.
100%.
So we'll see. It's also scary that it's coming from Facebook, who is known for privacy and and sort of data mining and all of that. So it's a little more alarming thinking if these guys innovate and get glasses in front of everybody, then it's basically the Dark Knight. Like who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, we'll see. I'm excited for what these guys are going to bring out, though.
Yeah,
Sounds
we'll
like a
have to
new
test it.
war. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Apple 17 came out, and then and now we're looking at new glasses. Wow.
Great time to be a consumer. It's a great time to be a consumer. It's a great time to be leaned into new tech form factors and be able to try a bunch of cool stuff. So all that is good. I think we need to be good stewards as well. And to your point around the privacy and everything else. So hopefully we can maintain that in this
Yeah.
new paradigm.
Until the next episode, appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. We'll
Like,
do it again.
subscribe. You know what to do. Hit the button. We'll talk soon.